department. And guess what? Discounts are available from now till end of May. To learn more, visit our website at daimlerhomesgh.com or call us on 0200 584 558. Daimler Homes, the elegance of living.
After successfully redefining Accra's skyline with the delivery of the signature apartment, Cape May Properties presents an exclusive unveiling of the tallest residential building in Ghana, offering a first look of Sultan Sky. Sultan Sky, a magnificent representation of the seamless fusion of quality, groundbreaking innovation, and pioneering architectural brilliance. An extraordinary structure set to reshape the concept of upscale living, thanks to its inventive attributes and unparalleled commitment to precision. This master-planned residential development will focus on the building's location, security, privacy, the design's aesthetic brilliance, elevated features in each living space, cutting-edge smart home technology, and amenities beyond imagination, with fantastic residential features which include 24-hour concierge service, a state-of-the-art fitness center, a floating tennis court, a floating swimming pool, a spa, a sky pool, a sky lounge, a movie theater, co-working spaces, kids zone, distinctive lifts for staff and deliveries, private gardens, chef's kitchen, expansive terraces, entertainment rooms, restaurant, and 24-hour security. Sultan Sky, a new perspective in the sky.
Yo, Abusia for Sabre, Mensa Aka, Dr. Akosua Ofosu Asiedu, Wababe Kenho, Nayanino Attraction and Como, Ede Afa, mental health. Mental health, ya debia, here pa, Nanso, and Pembe Breno, Yibuyani, Egu, and Yoma be bre, so Nanso, nay, Dr. Ababe Kenho, Ewahanwa, Oni, Babe Trichin, and Home and Como, and Mijis as I am Como Trichin, and who be here, ama me new be bre, anything from nearby, ana adamphobia sabre, or my mekan, not on so embra na omeken ho na yene no endwetwe enkomo ene ede na yensua bibi emfa mental health ho na megidi se ebeboa me obi ochina yo doc me mawajo emu akwaba ene anwumre edo eba program no so.
Hello, good evening.
No. Hello, good evening to you too. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, doc. We are very privileged to have you back again on this platform to talk to us on this very important topic when it comes to mental health, and especially in the family context. And then you may ya krado ya pesi etio nia entia ujidi se hu hia se yetimi edi eho enkomo na se eba se wonua bi adamfo bi exhibit some signs bia yetimi apekwan ye betimi dia faso na anjinsem ansa na apeho edru doc yemo akwaba na ye kan Dr. Akosua Ofosu Asiedu awon ne hwan who are you?
That's an interesting question. Okay, me a doctor with UK, me a GP trainee, but I'm essentially a sports doctor and a football club doctor. Just I'm a ship players nenema. On the side, me several things. Me was a China shouldn't create but me hosty programs. My name is Sister. Together we are the Oasis. Red carpet backstage presentation, but also more interest in women's health. Into a lot of talks on women's health and mental health. Into similar to these things. So that's just a little bit about me. But I like to think of myself as the doctor who says ma brabon koso, you know.
Doctor Okase ma brabo enkoso. You doc. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, ma brabo akoso. Na ansa na no. You have the capacity to share your slice. I know you are Dr. Bia. We are very practical. Na unye presentation or hanuma on share slice with us. Some kind of we are ready for you today. Doc, talk to us.
Timo ma me time on him because my slides in it also.
I don't assume you're America crammer into the
Okay.
apostle. You're
You
America
nti ma
crammer.
share my slides no.
Okay,
Okay,
go
na
ahead.
kwa me da se bebre se wa sama me sa opportunities me ne OT media for ne community baba be dim komo especially about mental health. So bi wa hana so on tree mommy hu na me tone down on the tree na me ankasa as you can tell me tree shede enko yesa. In that tap send us in OT media say me who me squad and so aha me who say yeah OT health talk show for every Wednesday yeah OT media health talk na yeah na squad bi wo hɔ yeah tiny omudin come who so nyina so enti nyina me cheche nyina thank you for coming. And then you talk near mental health, and it's on the family. Tiendra me mental health talk, but me on suicide. So I'll have some slides about the suicide as well. And then I'm personally focusing on mental health and how the family can support and how the family can sort of see some of the signs and symptoms of mental health.
But doc, mestre say me wa America cra amount say bia ubetimi ama a summary of what we did yesterday on seaside and so ebeboa na Africa.
Well, my included was slides no. Into na
Very
make us
good.
a slides
Thank
no
you.
worry no because my it's almost like two sessions. Into there's the mental health and then there's the suicide session. Into na make us a
Nice one.
hint. It will be there. Don't worry, we'll get to it.
Okay. Okay.
Into let's just start. What is mental health? Is the overall well-being. And usually a lot of the time, especially within the African background, and I'm going to be mentioning African a lot because I feel say your audience now we're mainly from Ghana, Africa. So a lot of the time we are more concerned about our physical health. Nti obi wɔ akomayare anaasɛ ne ɔti pae wɔ a wobɛfɛ duru anaasɛ wobɛkɔ doctor hɔ. Now, so no say mental health, yeah, oftentimes no, we put it to the side and we ignore it. You see, mental health, what is mental health? It's basically having your whole it's a holistic view of having your mind, your soul, your spirit, your emotions all being connected and being well. And so you can have good physical health, but if you're not well in your mind, so if you're emotionally distressed, then you've got poor mental health and you need to do something about it. So we'll come to talk about the symptoms to look out for later on. Families play a key role in supporting mental health. And when I talk about families, I mean not just say what the same moja, but even close friends. Some close friends are even closer than sisters and brothers and even parents at times. So if you're close to anybody, and we're going to use that term family today, they essentially play a very key role in keeping good mental health. And then it's also a knock-on effect. So if one family member struggles from mental health, it can often affect the whole family. So if you think about it, say you're in a family of 4 and your youngest child is suffering from mental health, now they be no channel no or call hospital. Eventually, no, it'll have a toll on the family. So it's important that the family come together. We all try to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health, and then we try to stop it in its tracks before it gets to the point where there's no return. Okay. So I've already talked about the definition of mental health. It's the emotional, psychological, and social well-being. All these things are included. And when I say social well-being, again, I'll elaborate on that later on. But you'll find out, say, I even talk about sort of social isolation. So be tied and who say not then who share them not or to who or to pneumonon be that can be known as being socially unwell. And being socially unwell and socially unstable is actually a symptom of mental health. So again, I'll come and explain that later on. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And it is very common. In fact, I can confidently say everybody on this call has had a moment where they've had mental. It's almost like saying, if I ask people here, how many of you have had a headache before? I think everybody will put their hand up. If I say, how many of you have had mental health problem before? I'm sure a lot of you will not put your hand up. But the truth is, all of us have been through it before, and that's the honest truth. There are stages of mental health, and everybody's been through it before. If you've ever lost a job, if you've ever lost somebody that you love, if you've ever lost something that's important to you, if you've ever been rejected from a job or a relationship or whatever, you've had a mental health problem before. It's very common. So again, we just need to raise awareness on what the signs and symptoms to look out for. So these are some of the common mental health challenges that we hear. So the top ones are the ones that, like I said, if you've got a stressful job like me, if you're a doctor, if you're a healthcare professional, you've definitely had stress before. If you're a lawyer, accountant, you definitely had mental health before because you've had stress. In fact, nana kwame crying, there was stress in the air high. Stress is a mental health symptom. Anxiety or depression or what is anxiety? Anxiety is the fear of the unknown. Even when you're going to a new job, and as a local interviewer, you can experience symptoms of anxiety. Everybody who's written an exam before would, and I say, even if you perform on a stage, you would have had symptoms of anxiety. So, like I said, these symptoms are very common. It becomes a disease when they are not controlled, and I say when it takes over our well-being and takes over our life. Depression in the same way. If you've ever lost something that's important to you, a person, a job, you can fall into depression. So the top line, most people have experienced it before. Then we come to the bottom stage. So there's substance abuse. So that's like alcohol abuse, drug abuse. Not everyone will experience that. Domestic violence or conflict. Then there are children, mental health, and then there's something called caregiver stress and burnout. And I want to stress on this point because this is seen a lot in the African community. But again, we seem to brush it to the corner. So what do I mean by caregiver stress and burnout? If you, beg your pardon, if you've ever had to look after somebody, you've had to be a carer to somebody. So whether it's your mother, it's your grandmother, na I say bia omo yare, esa una shom, una pepa omo ho, una feed you omo ye aduane mom. Even so even a parent. So your parent kwana say bia o sha akola, especially sa akola na yare and to be learning disability or Down syndrome or bibisa, you can get something called caregiver stress and burnout. And a lot of the time, caregivers tend to neglect themselves into because you do everything for the person that you're looking after. Into sa o yare, you neglect yourself. You find that you even let go of a lot of your friendship groups. You don't go out and and socialize. And a lot of the time, caregivers end up having depression. And sometimes it can be so bad, they can even have anxiety as well, especially sometimes if they're overthinking. So, ebia, me share me mami, me don't know, but ebia minim so enche then you start getting these feelings that, it's almost like you even feel like a bad person because sometimes, no, we feel say, even if you think about the person dying, you feel a sense of relief, but at the same time, you're like, I don't want the person to die. And then you get conflicting emotions where you're fighting with your own self. Into the there's caregiver stress and burnout, and it's very important. We don't tend to recognize that in the African community, but it's very, very real. So it's something that I want us to also keep an eye on. What impact does mental health have on family? So, as I said, it can give emotional strain on both parents and children. And again, I'll come to elaborate on children later on in this talk. But like I mentioned before, if you have a child and they're going through mental health, sometimes some of the symptoms that they show is even a change in behavior. So sometimes we can say, and I say, oh, and I say you feel like the relationship that you had with the child is no longer the same. And sometimes parents will start to worry, oh, are they being bullied at school? And I say, is something going on that they're not telling me, and then you have this emotional strain on yourself. And it's like the more that you try to approach that child about what they're going through, the more that they almost pull back. So it's important to notice some of the signs and know where to go for help. Okay. It can cause financial challenges. And again, I'll tell a story that I told yesterday about a woman in about mental health problems, but she was working 2 jobs to try and keep the family afloat. She was a single parent. And she felt that every time that's the time when because when your mental health attack. It's not catching anybody side anybody be fun on person because or ɛsɛ wokɔ adwuma na wokɔyɛ adwuma sɛnea wode sika bɛbɛ fie. But if you're constantly having to take your child to the hospital and having to stay home because they are threatening, so they're going to take their life, and I said they're going to burn themselves, and I said they're going to burn the house, you find that sometimes it takes you away from the job as well, and you get financial challenges. And not only that, some people then have to end up going privately, getting help, healthcare privately, and as a getting carers to come and look after the people mental health. So it's got a huge financial strain. In African communities, there's a big stigma that comes with mental health. It's almost like you can't talk about it, so you suffer in silence. A lot of us might have had experiences of going through mental health ourselves, and I said we know people who've been going through mental health, but to me we can't talk about it at because you who mental health as wabodam or yari sometimes because we are bodam or family mo. It runs in the family. Nane nana bodam way so ne banon so sesia unsene bano ya or nene nana no. And then they'll be saying these kind of things, and obviously you don't want to then disclose that information. So it's difficult for us to then get the help that we need because we're not able to disclose the information due to stigma. And then again, I've talked about family roles and stuff. Sometimes it can even cause divorce and stuff because mothers will start blaming fathers. Fathers will start blaming mothers. And because you're always working, you're not looking after the children. So now and all these kind of things. So again, having awareness of the problem is important because mental health and yet demonic attack is a medical condition, and there are things that we can do to try and treat the condition, try and cure the condition, as I try to at least keep it stable. And to know once you start figuring out the signs and the symptoms, it is very important. So we seek help from the support that we have, especially here in the UK. You can go to your doctors, you can go to your GPs, and I'll come to that in a minute. So this slide is specifically for children and noticing signs, but it's not really just children because this is for anybody with mental health. But I made this slide specifically because I want families to notice, especially in the younger ones, some of the signs and symptoms that might come out when we're talking about mental health. And to be like I said before, changes in appetite, changes in sleeping. Why are these important? Because some people come home with them aduane wo de lunch mom ko school back fie no na aduane na da so go bone obi ho so ntumi nda adenti onya nightmares sa Ghana ye wade bi ehwe no muntum, and I think say a lot of the time no I'm on focus a demonic, and again they attribute it to demonic skills, and but we want to akola bi wo ho na so muntum a ebi ko feel so to me in can't shine mama and papa because ebi kwa wako so that amaya say hey we dey yankan and as so if they're continuously having these attacks they feel like they can't tell, and then they are scared to sleep. They will be no onya nightmares, and as bibi sa can you see hey you need to be vigilant, especially when you've got kids. The way they're eating, the way they're sleeping, the way that they're engaging in activities. So when you're initially they like to play FIFA all the time, or when you're down for cut out every Friday, go swimming. All of a sudden I'll see me person me swimming biom, me person me FIFA biom. None of the activities pattern change. Yeah, you need to be able to tell these things. And I'm not here to judge anybody's parenting style. I'm a mother myself, and I know how difficult it is. Say, enye bibia now between me say, oh, I am keeping an eye on everything. You cannot count the hair on your son and your daughter's head. But near maybe or as parents, we should be able to notice. So even Oba favorite food change, yeah, you should be able to notice. If their favorite activities change, you should be able to notice. Menkasa ningina means say or yeah mental health, or sometimes these are natural growing processes where they grow out of things. But it is up to you, the parent, to notice the way in which things are going and make that judgment and come to that judgment and say maybe way normal, maybe and I say way abnormal. In the same way, again, like I said, I'm concentrating on children because I'm more interested in mental health in children, but in other family members as well. If you're a wife, if you're a husband, like or you free juma ba na say something is not quite right with them, and you should be able to tell, say, and then the ABI honey had a bad time at work. And I said, is it just saying they pen or have a bad time? And I said, for the past 2 weeks, no, I said, there's something wrong. If your husband is losing interest, na they be out television in him, na they be out on be obi on and Sana said all of a sudden every day he's coming home with a bottle of beer and their character has changed. You should be able to pick up these clues and pick up these signs and say there's something wrong, there's something not right. Okay. So these are important. Like I said, withdrawing from friends and family. This is the social aspect. So social isolation, isolating themselves. We call something anhedonia, and it's basically a medical term for they've lost interest in what they used to do. Sudden anger, irritability. Very simple things. Say because uknu say oh ejama me nsuo na esi table, so then they just flare up. I didn't walk off a and that's not their normal characters. As I normal to the end they do. But so if that's not their usual character, and I say yeah, that's the very first time I said no, something is wrong. Again, this is where you need to clock the signs. Now, when you clock the signs, what should you do? And this is what I'm going to say. You're not a healthcare professional. I don't expect you to diagnose mental health problems. But what I do expect you to do is to talk to them and listen to them. Do not judge them. Because it's only by talking to them that you realize, are they feeling hopeless? Are they feeling worthless? Something has happened at work and it's making them feel like, oh, they are good for nothing. And I said, it's making them feel worthless or hopeless and they feel like life is not worth living. You only know that when you've asked a question and you've taken your time to listen and you actually listen and don't judge. And you say, oh, what the young question penny into I dek to a jume, yakasa ye we jume went to me and awama could you a promotion no and an our casa san no. You don't judge, you don't talk back, listen. Because only by listening will you find out what is truly wrong and then you can figure out the next steps and how to help them. So this brings us on to the next steps. What do you do? I've already talked about this. Listen without judgment. No judgment at all. This is a very important point, and I'm going to keep hammering on this point today. And I keep saying this because I remember when I was younger, my father said something to me. He said, say, Ghana form by a Pesaya Dodo. And I guess he was trying to advise me, say, I shouldn't be that kind of a Ghanaian woman. And she said, say, Ghanaian women like to always, then I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes here, okay? But he was like, Ghanaian women always like to blame or like, we always like to almost, justify some actions, but even if it's not right, we'll find something to say. So for example, like you're saying, if let's say my husband's working on a project at work and he's been talking to me about it, how excited he is now, and then one of us, all of a sudden, one of the days he'll come back from work. Now I catch him and say, oh, ABA project no, anko ye, ABA, now me catch him so onye bibi, wanye. So if I'm catching so project no if you add the way and I saw you made the idea be man but if I want no feel say one it is a project no kuye no baba catch him no the first thing I will do is me catch and say me catch say project maybe you say and I say that's not the time. That is really not the time. You might have a point, but that's not the time to make your point. You don't kick a man when he's down. Until you listen without judgment. Oh, project na call saying, oh, project ni me nya o omo afa ma me omde my way. Oh, sir, sorry to hear about that. Tell me more. How does that make you feel? These are the kind of words you should be using. How does that make you feel? Oh, indeed, what's the next steps? What do you want to do? That can even calm the person down. But if you suddenly start judging the person, they will not even tell you how what happened. And you know what? You actually lose their trust because after that, they'll hardly tell you anything again because they'll just feel like this woman need them catch or but judge make it. And I know I keep saying woman, but it's vice versa for men as well. It's not usual for African men to be like that, but there are some people who are like that. So again, I'm not just saying says a woman, but I'm just saying generally, listen without judgment. When it comes to children, this is very important. Again, to listen without judgment. As parents, we like to tell our kids what to do, and we're often the first people to tell them, I told you so when it goes wrong. But when something goes wrong in your child's life, that's not the time for you to judge them. Again, just listen. Reassure your children and your loved ones that they're not alone, that you're there for them, and that you can support them in whatever they're going through. Encourage them. And if you talk to them and you feel like there's something amiss. So again, yesterday I was using an example. if you're talking to a child or a loved one and they start using buzzwords like, oh, I feel like life's not worth living. I feel like I feel hopeless. I don't feel like I want to be here anymore. When they start using words like that, they're going towards suicidal, and they always give you a flash sign, a warning sign. Encourage them to get professional help. Hold their hand, say, I'm here with you. I'm going to be with you through anything that you need to go through. But right now, I think that I can't help you through this alone, and that we need to get you professional help. And then go and see the GP. Okay. um Families do not have to manage mental health alone. I think spoke about this already. That's why there are people like myself. There's your GP. Schools pick up on a lot as well. There are community groups. So if children go to swimming or whatever, yesterday I spoke about even joining Ekuo. So if you're part of a church community and you're part of singing band, you're part of the choir, if you're part of MPP group, MPP UK or Netherlands or wherever, or any political party, Conservative, Labour, whatever, these places, there are people who are very important at picking up some of these signs, because sometimes they can tell the differences in you. If you turn up to your meetings, or you turn up to school and you're not quite right, people tend to pick things up and people will approach you about it. So again, families don't always have to feel like they're alone, especially when it comes to little children, children going through mental health. It's very, very difficult, incredibly difficult, especially in the teenage years and stuff. So schools are a very good resource to have. Churches or mosques or other communities, swimming groups are a very good resource to have. But your GP is probably one of the best resources available to you. Use your GP, use your doctors. I know it's difficult to get an appointment with the GP, but if you ever rang the GP and said you have a mental health problem or your child has a mental health problem, you'll get an appointment like that. Okay, because it's important to us. So it's important to use the services available to you. Now, yesterday was National Suicide Memorial Day for health workers. So that's why we covered suicide yesterday. So I'm just going to cover a little bit of suicide here as well today, just in memory of the National Suicide Memorial Day. And because I think it's important when it comes to mental health. So these statistics shocked a lot of people yesterday, but the truth is that a lot of people think, say, mental health does not exist in Africa and that suicide doesn't exist in Africa. But according to WHO, there are 11 per 100,000 population per year, people per year, who suffer from sort of suicide in Africa. And that is higher than the global average. So the global average is 9 per 100,000. In Africa, it's 11 per 100,000. So Africa is actually the highest continent when it comes to global suicide rates. Now, again, according to WHO, there are 10 countries globally who have the highest suicide rate. Out of those 10 countries, 6 come from Africa. Now, yes, it's not West Africa when I check. There's mostly sort of Southern Africa and those sort of areas, but it doesn't negate the fact that Black people go through mental health. And a lot of the time people say, oh, they don't believe, say, Africans, because it's a thing that we've not really ever recognized in our communities, mental health, suicide, and things. But according to the statistics, we're actually going through it a lot. And it's just because we don't talk about it. That's why we don't know. It's an estimated 20 attempted suicides for every death in Africa. So aside from the deaths that we're talking about, people are actually attempting suicide. And the fortunate thing is they're actually not becoming successful. So we're only counting the successful ones. So the ones that are actually not successful, we don't even know how many people are attempting suicide per day in Africa. So it's very important that we talk about mental health and we talk about suicide and we've raised these awareness, because it's happening and it's happening a lot. Okay. I've already talked about the warning signs for mental health and suicide, but I'm just going to quickly run through it as well. So again, like I said, people talking about dying, socially isolating themselves, changes in sleep, appetite, increased alcohol, drugs. People say actually saying goodbye is a big sign. So sometimes we will be at it. All of a sudden, oh, akosua me hu wache na me pese me be krawo. But cry me awo going fa. They can't really tell you where they're going, but it's like almost like you're getting a goodbye, like almost like a farewell vibe from them. I have a similar case of a girl who went to see her grandmother and basically wrote her grandmother a suicide note and hid it in her grandmother's purse and left her grandmother and went to try and commit suicide. Luckily enough, her grandmother found the suicide letter just in time, alerted the police, and were able to catch the girl. But she basically traveled all the way from England to go to Scotland just to go and say bye to her grandmother because she said, "Oh, I cannot kill myself without saying bye to my nan." And a lot of people do that. People send messages, people send texts, and people know, like, me, my sister, oh yeah, ejuma oye no to me funny phone in ejuma. Into no say, if I know that, say, I know it's okay within the hours of 9 to 5 when she's working, she's not gonna have access to her phone. I can leave her a message on her phone and then I can go do what I want to go and do. Because I know, say, by the time she'll come out, no my year, by the time Nisa come message, no, now, you know, I've already achieved what I wanted to achieve. So, people talking about death is a very, very, very telling sign. For parents here or guardians, if your children start asking about death and method, again, it's difficult to tell because every case is different. But so be akwa sorry na be omakoka Judas asem na because Judas kun no na we na obafie no baby sa questions about death. And we different because I know that there's a trigger, right? There's a trigger and effect. But say be there's no cause. People not to and all of a sudden, oh mommy, your friend is saying to you know, and then they start talking about these things. You need to start asking yourself, say, no, where is this coming from? And then you even need to find out why they're thinking that way. Is it said their friends are talking about it? And as should be, you know, like we still need to find out. So you still need to probe them. Debbie, kweku. I didn't know all of a sudden, all kinds. I mean, again, don't judge. Don't go and don't shut them down. No, because Debbie, I don't know. It won't want some and cancer some will feel no. You need to encourage them to talk about it, but you need to probe them in a way, or you need to understand where they're coming from. Why are they all of a sudden talking about it? And even if it's a thing where their friends are talking about, then you obviously need to do something about that because that's not good either, is it? So, risk factors for suicide is previous attempt, mental health or substance abuse, history of trauma or abuse, chronic illness. So there are some people who have chronic pain syndrome, or some people who have cancers and maybe they've been given a few years to live, or they're going through chemotherapy. They just feel like life is not worth living. They want to kill themselves. Being unemployed or financially stressed. So if you think about history has shown us that when the Wall Street crash happened, a lot of people sort of took their lives when they lost their jobs just because they felt like they couldn't keep up financially. So those are risk factors. But one of the top risk factors that Africans go through is the stigma around seeking help. So not being able to seek help, keeping everything bottled up inside, and then eventually feeling like I can't talk to anybody about this. The best way out is just to kill myself. So the stigma is a very important factor here that we really need to look at. We need to encourage people to talk about mental health and suicide and all those things. We need to encourage it, okay? I'm going to spend some time on this slide because it's very, very important. Again, I've said this several times today, and if you've not heard anything I've said today, it is tie. Listen. Just listen. Listen without judgment. When somebody comes to tell you about something that's affecting them, don't make it about you. Again, I'm going to come to parents here because sometimes when your kids are going through something, especially for African parents, we tend to draw towards the phone. Na me your age, na me share my brothers, na my sisters, na me her 9. Na me dot me mommy so na you kufu na you kufum na you kodo na you chikusie when we do all those things, and then you almost want to make it like, well, we've got an easy life, but that's not listening and that's not being encouraging, because fair enough, you feel so you might have had a hard life, but let's be honest, the kind of things that we are going through now, it might not be the same as what you're going through, but we're also going through our own. This Gen Z I'm not part of them, but this Gen Z population, think about it. Obi Gacham said back in the day, nobody will know. Say, if you're Gen Z, anything that happens is on social media for more than 1 million people to see. You're constantly being watched. The pressure is high. They're also going through their own things, and you might not think it's something, but that's what they're used to, and that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of stress. And so when they come to tell you about something that they're going through, just listen without judgment. Encourage them. Show that you care and that you're concerned about them. Oh, is that how you're feeling? I'm sorry that you're feeling like that. Tell me more. That's all you need to say. You don't need to say anything else. If you are worried that somebody is mentally unstable, And you need to ask them. You need to ask them directly. Ebia, ama newa bekasa. Ama say, oh, this thing has been happening at school. I'm being bullied at school, and I don't think I don't think a life is worth living. They might not tell you straight away that they're thinking of committing suicide. If you have a feeling that they're not quite right, you can ask them. You can say, Amma, have you thought about killing yourself? And I say, have you thought about taking your own life? And I say, even, Amma, have you thought about hurting yourself or doing something to yourself? Just asking the question. Because sometimes if you ask, they might actually break down in tears and they might tell you, oh, mommy, 2 weeks ago, me got a homa or being cute. Like sometimes they will open up to you, and that's because first you've listened to them. Secondly, you showed them that you care. And thirdly, because you've listened and you showed them that you care, you've actually picked up the crying, sorry, where the cry friend say, you've actually picked up their cry out loud for help, and you've actually asked them the right question. You wouldn't be able to ask them that question if you've not listened. If they came to you the very first time and you shut them down and you said, grow up. When I was your age, I was cooking for 50 people in my village. You're here, you're only making toast and you're crying. If you say that, how are they going to trust you to give you any more information? Okay? So that's why the listening is important. The showing you care is important because that's what's going to open up the dialogue. Okay? Ask them. If you're not confident to ask, but you're still worried about it, encourage them and encourage professional help. Say, okay, Amma, it seems like you're struggling a lot. I thank you for telling me. I thank you for trusting me with this information, but I think we're going to need some help. So why don't I make an appointment with you tomorrow to go and see the GP and then go to the GP with them? If you're really worried about them, you can call the crisis team or go to A&E. If you think somebody's going to kill themselves right now, tonight, you don't need to wait to see your GP. Go straight to A&E because it's actually an emergency. Okay? Do not leave them alone. If you think there's an immediate risk, be with them, encourage them, and as like I said, go to A&E. Call emergency services. So if you type into Google mental health crisis team, wherever you are, it will geolocate you and it will give you your number. If you've set up your computer in a way where like these people who work for MI6 and MI5, they're always trying to hide their locations and stuff. You can put a location. You can put London crisis team or particular Wembley crisis team, whatever, Southwark, Lewisham, wherever you are, Lewisham crisis team, and it will come up with the numbers that you need to call. If you're really stuck, just go to A&E or at least call 111. But anytime you call 111 with a mental health, they'll probably just tell you to go to A&E. That's the truth. So if in doubt, just go to A&E, okay? Because it's important. Right, we're almost at the end now, I promise. We've already spoken about the stigma, so I'm not going to dwell on it again. But stigma stops people from seeking help. So we need to create this awareness in our communities, in Black communities, and especially with parents and guardians when it comes to children. We need to create a stigma-free environment where children are able to talk to us about their mental health and their suicidal ideologies, if they have any. But if you've created an environment where your children can't approach you, then trust me, you're not going to be the person they're going to come to with this. And before you know it, I've seen it too many times when parents have come into hospital because they've been called from work, because they've left their child at home thinking that their child's going to go to school. And as soon as they've left the house, the child has gone and committed suicide. And the parent has had to be called from the hospital because their child is dead. It happens a lot. And I say, whenever I talk to especially Africans about this, they always say to me, are you sure this doesn't happen in African families? It happens more in African families because, and I said this yesterday, as a GP, a lot of the time I see a lot of white people coming into my GP practice with their children as young as the age of 8, 7. And the mother will be there with the child and the mother will say, my child is got depression. Can I have some medication for her? Or can I have something? And the mother is the one advocating for us to give antidepressants to the child. I've never in my GP life had any Black, African or Caribbean parent come to see me with their child to say such a similar thing. Never in my experience. So a lot of the time, we don't get help until it's too late. But I have seen a lot of Africans in the hospital because their child needs to be resuscitated because they've gone and drank something or they've gone and tried to kill themselves. But because we don't do the preventative part, before we know it, they're dying. That's the only bit. That's when we start to care. When the kids are dying, before we realize that this is a problem. So it's important to prevent suicide. And how do we do that? We talk openly about mental health. Don't even wait for your child to come and tell you. As soon as your child gets to an age where they're on social media, where you feel safe, you almost stroke a cry, and I said they start, you see, saying now, you gotta talk to them about mental health. Sit them down. When I was younger, and I know so there's been a lot of education going around, but when I was young, before I even menstruated, my mom sat me down and talked to me about menstruation because she said to me she didn't want me to go and ask advice from my friends when it starts happening to me. So before I even hit menstrual age, like just before maybe a year or two before my mom thought I might be getting to puberty, she sat me and my sister down. She told us everything we need to know, A to Z, about menstruation. The day it happened, I knew exactly who to go to. I did not have to go and call my friend. I did not have to call Kate to ask Kate, oh, something's happening to me. Do you know what's happening to me? I did not have to do that because I knew exactly what was going on. And I knew exactly who could help me. Why? Because she'd opened that pathway for her to say, I know about this. It's gonna happen to you. When it does happen to you, come to me. She's the first person I went to. And when I went to her, I wasn't panicking. I said, Mom, it's happening. Because I knew what was happening. It's the same with mental health. You don't have to wait for your child to be diagnosed with mental health conditions to tell them about mental health. Just because you talk about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But you need to warn them about it. Not even, again, I'm making this about parent-child, but that's because, like I said, that's my where I'm going. But this is about families. So even if it comes to your loved ones, your close friends, your sisters, your brothers, sit down, have a day. If you feel like it's not something that you can talk about, bring them to a show like this. Let's talk about mental health here. After that, have a little family discussion. Be like, what do you think about what Dr. Akosua said? Or what do you think about the mental health she's talking about? Talk about it. Just say, oh, Kwame Niama, the way that there's physical health. So, oh, it's paracetamol. So, oh, yeah, there's something called mental health. So, do baby now, friend, as I won't feel fine. If you want to mean that, want to mean, yes, yeah, your mental health. If it happens, hospital, talk to your kids about mental health. Because when it happens, they will come to you. Because why? They know that you've opened up that pathway. They know they can come and talk to you. They know they can trust you with that information. If they start hearing voices in their head telling them to do something silly to themselves, they'll be like, Mom, that thing you talked about, hearing voices, I'm hearing it. What do I do? But if they come and tell you I'm hearing voices, then you start casting demons. Hey, throwing holy water on them and throwing olive oil on them, just casting back. Trust me, they won't come and tell you again. That's it. You've lost them. You've lost the trust. Okay? Encourage regular health checkups. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be even with a health professional, but it can even just be with you yourself. If you say once a month, I'm going to check you from bottom to down, I'm going to check for your mental well-being is. If you like once a month, every time you can ask them about how are you feeling, how are you doing at school, how, just checking in with them. It just shows that you care. Reducing access of means to suicide. This usually comes in when you're a bit more higher risk. But if you know that your child has talked about suicide in the past or has tried suicide in the past, hiding all the knives, hiding access to things like bleach and stuff, not giving them access to be able to go to the shops to buy these things. Again, I'm talking about children a lot, but if you're living with family members, it might be a little bit more difficult with older family members, especially if you don't live with them. But if you live with people and you feel like they're at high suicide risk, hide knives, hide bleaches and stuff. If they need to use it, they just need to come and ask you. If you live with a wife who you feel has a tendency of cutting herself, hide the knives. If she needs to cook, she needs to come and ask you, and you need to watch her cook. Find ways in which you can make things work and prevent suicide from happening. Point 4 and 5 are more for healthcare professionals, so I'm not going to delve into that, okay? And I said I was going to plug this. So I've started this community called Safe Spaces. Now, essentially, it's a new initiative mainly for children from the age of 13 to 17 years old. And it basically provides a safe environment where children can share and learn and get mental health support. So if any of you here have kids who you feel like need a bit of mental health support, again, doesn't have to get to the really, really bad stage before you go for help. Even if you feel like your child is stressed at school from exams, if you feel like they're being bullied at school and they're having a really hard time, that's when you need to start getting the help. So it's for children to get a bit of extra, and it's for African children mainly, to get a bit of extra support where perhaps families can't provide that support. But it's also for their parents to also get support on how to support their children. So in the same way that I've been talking to you today about some of the things you can do, some of the signs and symptoms to look out for, some of the ways in which you can start a conversation with your children, we also run classes for parents to say if you're struggling with perhaps your child not eating, or maybe your child eating too much, or if you're struggling with your child not sleeping, or you think there's something that you're struggling with, we have personalized, tailored classes for parents, and we can also help you support your children. So it's a new initiative that we've put out, and we're going to have our first program in October. Again, I'll pass on the information to Nana Kwame. He'll share it with yourselves. But if there's anybody out there who feels like anything I've spoken about today, whether it be the suicide, whether it be the mental health, if you feel like you have an experience of it, or if you're going through it currently and you need a bit of extra support, again, I'm going to put my details in the chat. You can reach out to me. I'm going to put Safe Spaces details in there. You can reach out to Safe Spaces. And again, like I said, there's so many support networks that are available to you. So please use it. Okay. And especially Safe Spaces is made for Africans, literally for African children and parents. Use it. It's a free service. It's not, nobody's going to charge you for it. Okay. So I'm going to end on this. My key messages today. Mental health is a family matter. It's not a single person's matter. It affects everybody in the family. Early recognition and support makes a huge difference. Families thrive when mental health is being prioritized, and Safe Spaces is here for you to support you and your young children and all the families in the group chat. So I'm going to end on this note. Stronger families mean healthier communities. Let's work together to create safe spaces for all our children. Thank you for listening to me as I've ranted on and on and on and on. But it's just a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I think it's important that we talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akosua. Doc, I mean, on sharp, said ye okay, no, and come out near I really want all of us. I really want all of us to get involved. Near Dr. Ekaye nyina or a home question bia, Mr. Oma Onsaso ewo Zoom nuswa mefao. And I say odo question to chat room hono making kind ede ama doctor na doctor eyiwa no sa enso na metry na mafa omo YouTube any Facebook nso omo questions so hono mo now here on Facebook YouTuber Mr. File question to chat room comment section hono mo making kind ni na ede ama so abra me ne ka say me say nipa dodo no enso etie ewo YouTube and into Mr. wa so utie YouTuber for a question no to chat comment section on mo na making kind edit amount yo yemfa JB indi kind na maba dina enso ehonomo JB mbacho koso nafa o question ebra.
Yo, good evening.
Good evening, mommy.
Mbacho, my question is akoda bi already 17. Yenim se krom ha yese akoda di 18 or adult. Na koda we di 17 na ni mamia notice say or issues or yanya mental mental issue na odinu akọ GP ho na GP se onja koda no kwan ho no ni akoda no enkasa enu sa no se akoda no befia ana omufri wa mwa be na maami no betumi ama because akoda is still no oya minor ni maami na to me die oya akoda nti se maami no eni ho na enya akoda no so na e kan se mani maami entna ho nti ase GP no e die na se maami no oye.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking. So normal. So obiba me ho as a GP no mental health. So any mama na nam cry, no matter how nipa kono wedi 8 cry, I always get the mom to go out. Nipa kono wedi 4. cry, I get the mom to go out. Why? Because sometimes you feel say near maybe or wha akola na bia untumi nka woni mami enim. Into no obitumi aka wo yen enim. So that's why we do that. And yes, bia ye pese a confidentiality. And I guess it is confidentiality, but yes, bia ye pese mami no be wo ha na bibi. And akola ne ka asem bi chen na you feel say important say mami no be hu a. Oftentimes no, ye ka share mami no. But say be confidential, na say be akola na ka chen so mpese ni mami be hu inde yen kan share because why? We have a duty of confidentiality. Into you as a parent, no then I'll be to me aye. Again, don't probe too much. Akola no ebia onimde a onpeso beka show. The most important thing is say what the number. Say be a GP for no you're worried about and are concerned about her. Definitely they'll work on it. They won't leave you to go home with the person if there's something worth being concerned about. Into what the end say, uni ni pa kono do fia, uni akola no do fia, opa obit me be saying so, oh, GP no net the same. No feel say helpful and now. In asking those questions, no pa obit me be saying say, oh, what did you talk about? Akola na yes on can show and answer say, oh mom, na I say, on you interested, leave it. Don't probe any further. Sometimes they might end up eventually coming back to tell you. But the thing is that if you try to probe them and force that information out of them, the most important thing is that they know say you are there for them. Why? Because you carried them to the GP. If things are getting critical, they know they can come to you because even if they can't tell you exactly what it is, they know you're there to support them. And that's the only thing you need to do. As a parent, you just need to show, say you're there so they can come to you. But you don't need all the details, okay?
Thank you.
Doc, where the mommy and busa there na mommy no can say so in this situation no ordinary GP. GP ni so no kwa ne akola ne bekasa. Akola ne be fie. What kind of support na mommy obetimi e de amane biem?
Since I make an into no bekasa, still you have to debrief. Into udu fear, only akola ne nkasa. Bisa say, oh, GP na call no feel set to saying. Na ya na then na only GP ne kai. Send obeka cha wa fine. So one can't wa fine. But depending on what into how can no power to me bisa say into no GP no can say two things you can do actually. When you are back into the room with the GP, you can always ask the GP say how can you support the child in front of the child no better say will be such a question. No, who's okay. So you're here to support them. You're here to you care about them. To do fear now, yes, I debrief session with a colon. So now I say, okay, GP is I mean support you say. What Phil say, is there anything else that I can also do from your point of view? I mean to me and support you. Like I said, every case is individual. So it's difficult to sort of give your general advice. But sometimes, even as parents, you know what you can do to support your child based on the little information on their mouth. So if you want to catch it, to say, oh yeah, ebe you bully me with school in any team and person me go school in your ma. Ebe you win him the obey a bit to me, amasa bullying no. I then I calm it down. See, say if they are bullying them for a particular reason, and I say if he's bullying them because of after school club, maybe you can move them from that after school club, or you can do something. So you will know what you need to do. But I think the most important thing here is to show Akolana say you care and asking that question over and over again. So asking at the GP, what can I do to help you? Asking the child at home, what can I do to help you? And then doing the thing that the child has said, not just asking and leaving it. To be proactive as well.
Yo, Doc, yabedasi. Pacho yemfa eye Diana and so ewa. Na other questions so I'm in Saka or Hanemebusa. Diana Pacho, go ahead and ask a question.
Yo, me da si bebre. Me pacho, na me bisa say, wo ba we di 16 years. No catch yourself for the past 2 weeks. Bo between 1 and 3 aya na ni 30. Na oda hɔ a nsa na obesan ada biem nti esa na ade be che na obekɔ school na say ne time no o ya late. Me person me bisa say early sign of mental health issue ana. Me that's
Nti eno difficult. Say because it could be several things. because ni bete but obesanda into no we need to find out say I didn't need it because on your nightmares and I say bia the sleeping time masasana and is he sleeping much earlier and I say much later and I say has any of the routine that he's doing at night changed? So is he watching more TV before sleeping? Is he reading books before sleeping? Is he playing games before sleeping? Because some of these things can also affect your sleep pattern. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes though, even the sleeping thing, it can honestly be just a natural progression of aqualand, because as we know, when you hit puberty, your hormones in your so it could actually just be a natural thing. It could also be saving and saying weather no has been a bit warmer and I say it's a bit cooler these days, but could it be said there's a change in weather which is making the person wake up? But we don't know until we've asked those questions. So the most important thing you need to do is to sit down with the child, maybe sakwa and say add into now or feel so onyane because of kojonso and answer onyane because onya nightmares. So onya nightmares, I ask about the nightmares. Are they always the same dreams? And I say, are they different dreams? And then you want to be asking these kind of questions. If it's a consistent thing and is lasting longer than let's say 4 weeks, a month, and that is really affecting the schooler, then it'll be worth going to your GP to seek some help and saying, say, this has been happening, is making them feel sleepy at night. It could actually be more of a physical thing than a mental health thing, because amanfoɔ with something called sleep apnea tend to really struggle with sleep as well. So it's better sɛ wobɛkɔ doctor hɔ na doctor ayɛ an investigation, so ɔbɛtwe mogya, ɔbɛyɛ sleep studies, and I say on no be taking history na waka so okay, I feel say way your mental health, and I say way your physical, and I say way your normal progression, and then that's how you take it into that would be my advice to whoever's asking.
Pacho yo me that's
Yo, Doc, Ebra Okasano, you said something striking me kakra. Say in your practice, no, awofo a omo etai ede omo ma eba to assist for you to help them and I say seek help with their mental health issue no dodo na bro for before entai emma and I say before makra. Now my question is say sa stigma na yede etare mental health on eno ema before no emakra na the tosu mienu ebiemu nso no Ghana yewo specific hospital ye tied to mental health patients, psychiatric hospital, Pantan hospital and stuff like that. Sometimes obi kohon mumpa ya na family members taking family member then grand den mom, but ahanentisa edientia na futu ben na wode be my own. The last question. Yewo endra ye treat mental health patients na ewo effect ewo this patient eswana side effect, let me say side effect ewo mental health patients swana.
Okay, thank you for your questions. All very important questions, by the way. See, my first one, no. I believe say stigma no a big part of the problem. But when stigma no podie, I think say wo krom ham podie, ebi and shedding the main thing. From my experience of working with Black people and African people, I feel say you need your whole time. That's the honest truth. And your mental health in sometimes so be a crash, so will be jay juma. Said ne 11 pounds an hour and bonnet dear obwa crack say on jay juman kind of and I understand it, okay. I understand the struggle that we go through, especially with Kruma, because the cost of living is high, bills are high. Sometimes who jay jumana who employer crown you sometimes you're even scared so you might lose your job. So I definitely understand, but I think that's a big part of things, because aside from mental health, it is a known fact that even when it comes to physical health, there are health inequalities when it comes to Black communities. Why? Because we don't make time to go to the hospital. So that's number one. Number two, again, when it comes to the UK, Black people before slow doctors. And Obi Kachem says because of the history of slavery and how Black people were experimented on in the past. Black people just don't trust doctors. There's not that trust for doctors. What they say, we for moja cry. I say, oh, we need blood donation. We need blood donation from Black people. We need stem cell donation from Black people. We're always asking Black people, say, we need this, we need that, we need that. But the Black person, back hospital, they are just say, nene kono, hanging on one thread. Asana. I do think that the stigma plays a part, but I genuinely also believe that it is a culture that Black people have. We just don't like going to the hospital seeking for help, whatever case that might be. But that's why we have to raise this awareness and to say, well, one call hospital, it could end up in death. Into the same way as a wakoma ya o ya, obeko hospital no, na wakoje ayaresare did I say that right? Ayaresare, ayaresare, ayaresa. Ayar. And so be the ne background Akoso sa institutions that they're almost they're rested assured say I'm not going to go and meet anybody here that I know because I know say these people don't go there. So when they're going now, it's not such a big problem. Whereas in Ghana, and I say in Africa, if you're going to these institutions, it's like, oh, Dr. Obokakushiano or Kwewa, it's a small community, so and you don't want that stigma to be with your family. And the sad thing is that stigma does stay with the family because I've heard so many times, so we can't abodam, and they will say things like that. So you really don't want to have your family tagged as, oh, family na abodam woman. So that's why people might find it a little bit more difficult in Africa to take their loved ones to these institutions. And then the last question on the side effects of medications, and I think I've said it here several times, that every medicine has a side effect. In fact, anything that you eat has side effect. Cranberry juice was side effect. Orange juice was side effect. And yes, I know it's ridiculous to compare the two because it's not, we're talking about medications here. Yes, antidepressants and antipsychotics do have side effects, but that's why before we give them, we do check. So if anybody has ever been on antipsychotics before, you see, say we'll check your ECG, we'll check your bloods, we'll make sure that we're giving you the right medication. We'll check your family history and your medical history to see, so okay, the medication that we're giving you is not going to give you adverse side effects. Every medicine that we prescribe for you will have side effects. Contraceptive pills has side effect. Hormone replacement therapy has side effects. Paracetamol has side effects. So it's more of the risk of the benefit against the risk. So if we think that the benefit outweighs the risk, then we will recommend, so, okay, even though we know it might potentially give you this side effect, we still think, say, in the long run, it will be better for you. If we think, say, it's not beneficial to you, we won't prescribe it for you. It's our duty. Okay, so I think, say, again, there needs to be a bit more trust in the healthcare system and the kind of medications that we tend to recommend. And
No.
another thing as well, sorry, just to add before, when a lot of people have this mentality that once you've gone on antidepressants, you never come off them. That is not true. We can taper you off them, but it depends on how badly your symptoms are. So, people do stay on them for a longer time, especially antipsychotics. You tend to stay on them for a longer time because antipsychotics are usually for conditions like schizophrenia, any mania. Those conditions, they're usually genetic, so they don't tend to go away. They are something that's stuck with you. I said diabetes and our high blood pressure. So usually antipsychotics, you stay on them for a very long time. But antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, they're usually, once you've passed your episode of depression in your mind, we've managed to get you to a stable session, we can taper them down. And people have completely come off antidepressants in the past. So you don't need to think about being on it for long term.
Doc, ebedase enanyumre. Abusiafo mi go so many Dr. Akosua Ofosu Asiedu etwetwen enkomo efa mental health nititu when it comes to mental health and the family. Na enkomo bi a megidi se wonso uwo bi ka anasa wo question ebusa. Wo question busa mo ansa so e Zoom no so a mefro na watimi e de question no e de aba. Sa enso na obetimi de question to chat room no metimi ama mebusa ama doctor eya no e de ama. O here on Facebook, Zoom and Facebook and YouTube and so a o question to comment section on me read the e de ama na doctor ano ediama. Doc, what about a family member who some signs are pointed to the fact that he or she might be experiencing mental health challenge? Now, so on one moon, the one jintum now the empire we need any day. How can you help such a person?
The thing is difficult because again, when I did the substance misuse sessions, I've done a session on alcohol and I've done on smoking, and I've said the sad thing is a person must want help for them to be helped. You can't force a person. Unfortunately, you can't force somebody to get help. So the only thing you can do is you can encourage the person. I made notes in, I think my smoking or my alcohol session says sometimes if you're worried about somebody to that extent, you can actually contact, if you're a close family member, you know their GP, you can actually contact their GP and say, this is what's going on. You're worried about the person. And is there any way that the GP can maybe get involved? Sometimes, depending on GP, some GPs might say, if the person is not willing to bring themselves out, there's nothing they can do. But some GPs can sometimes actually call the patient and invite them to come in for like just a health review to say, we just want to check your blood pressure, no diabetes, and they will do a quick questionnaire on mental health and see. So it's worth checking. There are also mental health organizations out there, like I said. So obviously there's the safe spaces that we've just come up with, but there are ones in the communities that might be local to you. There's the crisis team. You can always ask them for advice, especially if you feel somebody is a danger to themselves or to somebody else. That one there is very important. If you think someone is a danger to themselves or somebody else, you need to call the crisis team immediately. And then the crisis team, I know what they'll do is they'll put them under a section and they can section them because so if somebody is so bad, said they are thinking about killing themselves or harming somebody else, they are not going to bring themselves to to hand themselves in. Then when you say they don't have any mental capacity, in that case, we can act on their behalf as a medical team to say, yeah, So these are some of the things you can do. But I think the very last thing I will say in terms of family support is just encouraging the person. If somebody is not so bad, but they be yes or person or sorry no sometimes the pastors no normal because these are some of the things that pastors should be doing. Pastors, imams, if somebody is coming to you with a mental health problem, I can't say prayer is not good, but you need to supplement the prayer because even God said, give what belongs to Caesar and give what belongs to God to God. God created doctors and gave us a brain for a reason. And he gave us a brain and made us invent a lot of things. All these antidepressants and all antipsychotics, they all come from God. And is a way in which we can use to prolong our lives and to give us better lives. So, hospital, heart attack, stroke, hospital, so mental health, as much as you can be praying about it, but you also need to go and be cured of your mental health. And the simple thing is that there are two things you can do. Encourage the person, say to the person, we're here for you, we support you, but we think you need help. or go to the person's pastor or imam or whoever they are doing this prayer meeting with and say to the person, share, you need to encourage this person to go to the hospital because as much as prayer needs you, God needs a vessel for it to work. That would be my main advice.
Yo, said your doc, okay, say, before you tie in seeking help when it comes to our mental health, and I say, our mental health, are there any myths that you can debunk this evening that can encourage us to seek help?
Sorry, me say question. Let me read the comment.
Yo, the na me can say, okasa mu no o ma yeti ase say before entie and seek help when it comes to our mental well-being. Na me busa say, are there any myths that you can debunk? A bit me aboying to help us to seek help. Bia ne yatiti binti ena bia no na ema yenko je emwa when we need it. Internet. Are there any such things that bia bit me I be encouraging?
Oh yeah, there are a few. I mean, I've already mentioned one where I've said, say, we tend to think, say, it is a witchcraft thing. And I say, yeah, feel say be phobia and I say bibisa and tisa mental health won't yare normal yare any yare I'm kind of so utia ya and as wakuma ya mental health is also a thing. And in fact, everybody goes through it. It's very common. Stress, depression, anxiety. These are the top three. Everybody has been through it at some point in their life. In mental health, a way be demonic way be as I cast it out. So that's number one. Number two, the medication that we use for mental health, it's not something that you have to stay on it for long term. A lot of the people think say, oh, we have to stay for long term and they have side effects. And I say, but like I said, you can come off antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. It just depends on how well they work on you. And the funny thing is, they are not even first line. So in the NHS, antidepressants are not first line. If you've got mild depression, usually we do something called CBT, so just talking therapies. Or we might offer some other type of therapies. If you feel so, oh, I'm going to go see the doctor and they're going to give me antidepressant. In fact, that's not my first line. I never offer that on a first basis. And even if I offer it, I always offer it with therapy because the plan is so we need to get you off the medication. And if we just give you the medicine, we're not solving the problem. The therapy is what's going to solve the problem. So usually we start you on the antidepressants because we know say therapy waiting list, or sometimes it can take a month or two before you get a therapist on the NHS. You're starting on the medication just to get you to, and sometimes if people also start the therapy without being on medication, they don't really engage very well because their mindset is not there. So the medication sometimes helps your mindset improve so that you can engage well with the therapy. And as soon as you start engaging with the therapy, then we start bringing down the medication. So these are some of the things that I think people need to know. And on the NHS, you can always refuse treatment. So just because your doctor has told you, say, I recommend you to take antidepressants, and by force. You can say, doc, I don't want to take them. And that's it. Obiani any problem. The only time, like I said, that you'll be forced for treatment when you are sectioned. But if you're sectioned, that means that you don't have mental capacity. All that means is that you're not mentally capable of making decisions for yourself. So in that case, the government, also known as the doctors and the NHS, will take over that decision making for you. And that's usually within the short term. As a section certificate often lasts for something like 48 hours and are 72 at the most. So within 3 days, we give you the medications. We need you to get your capacity back. Once you have your capacity back, you can start making your own decisions for yourself. You can say, get me off these medications. I never want to be on them again. And we'll stop it. So I think that some of the things that we need to know about the treatment of mental health. It's not a scary thing. And to say a mental video na your hair na ya chichiro or white band mune do akoshe dem na ya lock for 10 days. No, you hardly get. In fact, I don't think I know anybody who has depression or anxiety who has ever gotten to that level. That level is usually for people who have something like schizophrenia, any mania. And again, we can talk about that on a different day. But I know those conditions, they go through something we call psychotic symptoms. A psychotic symptoms. So, guy, no good.
Give me the tissue.
That guy na push white man be America no. Everyone is saying, you know, the news has been going around these days. Chris, why. So onu say no. Obetumi aka so voice beat. No, in fact, that's the wrong one to use. The guy who stabbed the girl in the train, the one that's I don't know if anybody has seen this video going around, but there's in America, there's a black man who stabbed this Ukrainian girl in the neck. No, can say voices being a catcher and say on stab this girl no. So those voices, those people who are on that level, no, that's known as psychotic symptoms. Those are schizophrenia type of symptoms. Those are the people that we lock up. Why? Because they are a threat to themselves and a threat to other people. You understand? And you know, hardly ever do we lock up people who have depression or anxiety. In fact, it doesn't happen. Okay. So I think these are some of the things that we need to be made aware of.
Doc, hope I saw that question in the chat.
Obi ama a private one na make sure but we or I say Obama basso intimidasi. Okay, I'll say sanctioning takes 28 days, but you can appeal before so it depends. There are different types of this is answering Harriet's one. How long can one stay on schizophrenia medication for? Okay. So is there another one before that? Okay, no.
No, I don't know.
So as I said, schizophrenia medication, they're honestly, most of the time it can be lifelong because like I said, schizophrenia is something that is inherited. It's usually an inherited condition. It's something that like runs in the family. And I say a condition it's actually genetic. Into I to say baby to say diabetes. When you start diabetes medication now, most of the time you stay on it for lifelong, especially high blood pressure. Most of it you stay on it for lifelong. It's a bit more higher on the mental health scale of things. When you talk about things like schizophrenia, any mania, any bipolar disorder, these are some of the disorders that are actually linked to genetics. The medications that we give for that, some of them, like the antipsychotics, they can stay on it lifelong because if they come off it, they start hearing the voices, they start getting the psychotic symptoms that comes with schizophrenia. So like I said before, for that one, oftentimes they do take, but it's a different skill in terms of mental health because the schizophrenia is a little bit more serious. Okay. In terms of the sectioning that you talked about, so there are different types of sectioning. Immediate sectioning, I don't know how this works in other countries, but in the UK, you often never start off with 28 days. We always give you I can't remember the exact section. They're different when there's section 8, section 7, almost different names and numbers for it. But we always start with the 48 hours one and the 72 hours one. So no, na still then we have a way to extend it. The first section lasted several hours. No, most doctors can put that through. So obi to say maybe to me, like a resident doctor. But the 28-day or any section longer than 72 hours has to be done by a clinical psychologist and as a psychiatrist. So it has to be done by a consultant. Now, the only time, so within those 24 to 48 to 72 hours, if me as your doctor, until by A&E, and I feel like you don't have mental capacity, I can put the capacity form in and I can section you for 48 to 72 hours. Now, within that 48 to 72 hours, you have to have a consultant review. Consultant psychiatrist will come and see you. If the consultant psychiatrist feels like you need extension, then they will put in the 28-day extension. That's the one where they will take you to the mental institute. They will lock you up in a room. Not that they lock you up, but basically they'll take you. You're not able to leave because you are a danger to yourself. And then they will treat you for the duration of that time. So we have to understand, say, it's not like, oh, you've just entered the hospital and then 28 days, bam. It depends on how serious. And like I said, I've never experienced somebody who has depression or anxiety or stress gone through 28 days of section. Usually sectioning is for people who have the higher end stuff, so like bipolar, schizophrenia. But these are people who can be dangerous because if we don't section them, then they might end up killing themselves or they might kill other people because they will say things like, I'm hearing voices which is telling me to kill this person or kill that person. So we section them because we feel like they're a risk to themselves or to the community, and that's why we do that.
Right. Emmanuel Jima. But also a question. Ima, go ahead and ask your question.
Just 1 minute.
Hello, Emmanuel.
Pasha me waso.
I Koso busa question.
Pasha me ne ejuma alata ejuma ko bi na ejuma na ye sorry na pub say 5 I do for say 11. Ye nya enough first. But because you are tied to serious no. So you so no mo yeso pasha mbobi wa mbes me dia ba me Ghana ni mbo UK. Mbobi wa ho ana.
Emmanuel, Maminfa one doctor Mr. Doctor, sorry. One immigration lawyer ne number and two agent contact him na advice be of it at the amount. Why? Into sending the number at the amount privately or okay. Yo, obi fufro ewo question be at the Emma Dr. Akosua Anna and then you on mental health. Yo, not just say it looks like say and then you and come out to no ya tiasie intina ya bet wrap up and then ewo ahanomo.
No, we didn't patch her, sorry.
Yo, go ahead. Go ahead.
Dr. Kos.
Hello, Dilly, long time.
Long time. Okay. Now, me pesa me bisa, patcho me chia ubia. Me pesa me bisa say, so bi so wo, depression, so timu se nipa no fedro na, he's not himself. Utimu say, adrenaline ni ho wa ye yibi. Is it advisable to just, as this person said, on free drone so because ultimately of free drone na why be ultimately nipa na adwin ni ho. And I'm thinking say be a drone will effect on nipa no the way they are active, it affect them. That's how I see it. Into a advisable. So bit me a catch nipa na samani onje drone ifa.
It's advisable so Bakachi nipa so onko ni GP ho na omun try say ombese drone amano. So we do know say some of the medications that it gives some of those side effects. Particularly, were two ones that tend to do that. In Tibakubi or a friend trazodone, and there's another one amitriptyline. They are ones that we often tell people say they should take at night because I know normal far they tend to become like it's a very drowsy, very sleepy. They're not quite themselves. Into endocrinos, we don't tend to give it to people who do like heavy duty. Ijumana say an amount for like drive like machinery. So we don't tend to do that. Into if the person is experiencing any side effects that is affecting their normal cognitive function, there are so many antidepressants out there that we can try. So we can just take them off one and try them on another one. Usually the first line ones that we use are something like sertraline and that's fluoxetine or escitalopram. So these are SSRIs. Unless he has a medical reason why he cannot be on an SSRI, usually those will be the first. Again, the only reason we'll give any of the sedative ones and also ones which affect you like that is dependent on how the GP has perceived the condition to be. If they feel say is really maybe they needed some higher end. So the most important thing is I will never say to anybody to come off antidepressants cold turkey because what it does is it has a knock-on like withdrawal effects.
Okay.
But even when we're taking you off antidepressant, we tend to taper it down. We never take you off it fully. So even if you're going to come off it, you still need your GP's advice to tell you how to come off it, depending on the dose they're on. So if they're on like trazodone 150, they'll go down to 100 first, and then they'll go down to 50, and then they'll stop. So even if you did want to stop it, it's worth having a conversation with a GP. But like I said, if the drug is working for their mental health and it's just affecting them on a daily basis, then I will always say it's better that they try and find another drug that they can use. And what they'll do is they'll cross taper it. So as they're bringing the trazodone down, they'll be bringing the other drug up, and then they'll basically make sure it works. So there's so many things we can do with it. So it's worth having a conversation with the GP.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dr. Akos, your question by the way is off the topic. Intimately, Nana will allow me about major my uncle for some question answer.
Oh, why not?
All right. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Not Dr. Akos, maybe Sasa, hair loss transplant. Sorry, I'm talking. Sorry. Hair loss transplant. I will Chrome have with a private clinic, and then the ones that people goes to abroad to do, especially Turkey. Would you? Ubetimi recommend? Is it? How do I put it? Meaning, so because abroad, they don't know your medical history. I get that. But do they have a qualified doctor that deal with Black people? The nature of Black people's hair.
Question now be some day tough because it's difficult for me to say. I mean, I don't have experience of the doctors outside of the UK. That's the honest truth. And the thing is that I do know of Black people who've been to Turkey who've had it. I thought I see Mr. Drew Krakoyebi. I know the say never fatanopa.
One name is Drew. I don't know.
one Ghanaian artist view Okoyebi apparently, and
okay.
it looked good on him. I don't know where he went to, whether he went to Turkey. So I mean, the honest truth is I can't comment on that because I don't know. I don't know about, but I know say even Turkey there are certified doctors and then there are non-certified doctors. I get really, really cheap ones, but you need to be wary of those because are they certified? And I also think you need to do your research if you decide to go to Turkey. I've invited one plastic surgeon on this show before. He's a Ghanaian plastic surgeon, but he works in the UK. And he told me to tell everybody who's asking me about Turkey, so I'm on train because he's about to open a hair transplant site in Ghana. He said that it's going to be affordable. So
tell him to come on. We need to ask him more questions.
Don't go and waste your money in Turkey. But I don't know how long it'll take for him to set his up. When he sets it up, I'll let you guys know. And I guess he can come and talk to you about hair transplant at some point and also let you know what the dangers are. And, he might be able to recommend that. I don't know. But I'll have to talk to him.
Is he a doctor in the UK who has a clinic?
Yeah, he does.
Now, can you give me his details? The clinic? No, privately, please. Privately.
Tilly.
Nana.
This question. Okay, question. It's simple to me. Fine. And I debore me. And actually,
Tilly, don't worry.
I'll allow this one.
Thank you, Nana. Where the Capra?
No worries. But you can contact Dr. Akosua. You can get her contact, speak to her, and you can have that chat later on about hair planting and all that. All right. Dr. Akosua, there's one question in the chat room. If you can pick that one, then we can try and wrap it up and end the show this evening.
Yeah, aripiprazole. Yeah, so that's one of the ones we use for schizophrenia. Is it good medication? Yes. It's one of the ones we certainly use, and it obviously depends on like I said, depends on but it's one that we actually even use for even depression. So if people have depression with psychotic symptoms, we tend to use it, so it helps with the psychotic symptoms. So yeah, I don't say it's quite a low dose, so I mean it's not too high that I'll be too worried about it. So yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
Unless there's a particular side effect you want to ask about, but I mean, just generally as a drug, I know it works and it works very well for psychotic symptoms. So I think it's a good drug.
Doc, my final question, I may busa answer na yako. Okay, say because of said ye 9 to 5, 2 shift any adintino, ye time and when it comes to healthcare. Now, we question we will be able to say, and it's linked to it. Now, I'll say, what are realistic self-care practice for busy family members are especially when it comes to mental health?
I always say, sir, making time to spend together as a family is very, very important. That's the only way that you build bonds, that you build relationships. And I know, say, for some families that's a luxury. Now, ideally, ideally, if we you were to do it once a week, it would be good practice. But realistically speaking, I know even for my own family, that once a week it might be a struggle. And when I say like even like a family bonding session, sometimes I mean just even so when I was younger, we used to do this thing where every Sunday after church, Sunday was like our family time. So we'll watch movies together. And we made it a thing where we said my mom would choose the movies. So any cowboy movie from like 1950s, I know it. I've watched it. I know all of them. Okay. Because it was the time that we'd watch The Godfather, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, all those ones. Like I know all the songs to all the musicals. Yeah, we know it. So, but it was a good bonding time because we really built a relationship with my mom. And it's something that I want to implement in my own household, even though I'm currently struggling because like in this day and age, nobody has time. So once a week seems a bit fetch, but even if you're not able to do it, again, I do this thing with my husband where we try to do every month, we do something where we call like relationship review. That again, you can adopt for the family. So again, when our son's a bit older, we're gonna obviously rope him in and do a little family review. Again, this is something I adopted from my mom where we actually used to do this every week where at the end of the week we would come together after we watch the movies and then we'll do this thing where we'd be like, so obi aye bibi during the week ebi a wompe went to me anka, this is the time to talk about it and then we'll talk about it as family. So you found, say, you were never really holding anything or any grudge against anybody because we were always doing these things. So again, you can just extend that to be once a month. It will be a befa diary. Now I try me say more diary. Obi bibi na makotra to and dra abana fa and I'm referring kwanum with debi amame. I'm a chat to her. And then you have these but you see, say it's not like you're having any serious conversations behind anything, but you're having that's why we have even at work, we have team building sessions, isn't it? So you're having a family building session at the end of the month, but you're also having conflict resolution at the end of the month. Nobody's holding anything against each other. When you do that with your kids, they tend to build a relationship with you where they feel like they can trust you. Because why? If my mom does something wrong and I feel like my mom has hurt me, I don't necessarily have to tell my mom at that time. I just need to go and write it in my diary for the end of month review. Because at the end of month review, I know I'm about to tell my mom about herself. But you see how many children have the opportunity to say to their mom, say you've done something wrong in an African household. But if you can't do that, if I can't come to my mom and I can't say to her, say, Mom, you did this thing and I wasn't happy about it. And even if you as the mother think say you were right, but it's about us talking through that and seeing how we can make that relationship better. So you're building a relationship with me where I feel like I can open up to you. Okay. So that would be my advice. Team building, family building sessions once a month at least. It doesn't have to be long. It can literally be 10 minutes. You can play a game of cards. You can play Uno. It doesn't have to be a movie. Movies, maybe you're working night shift on a Sunday. So you just want to take a Sunday morning, maybe if you're going to church, if you don't go to church, whatever it is, bake a cake together, do something, just something that builds a family. And even whilst you're doing that activity, you can then be talking and then you just open up. And that would be my advice. And within those sessions as well, you can talk about controversial things as well. So that's where you can have the mental health checkup and be like, how's school been? How are you feeling? Have you had any weird thoughts lately? Has anything, you can literally plug those questions in there and yeah, you can just have a good family time. So I know it doesn't work for everybody. It's not a model that will work for everybody, but if you can, I will advise it. And even if you miss it for 1 month, it's not the end of the world. So far as you try to be as consistent as you can, that's the most important thing.
Talking about family time, family bonding time, na say one partner, parent, they be a mo transition movie na ono the person order, and then abe.
Dr. Kuju. I got to a time where we told this. So Dr. I just want to move it. Like within like 2 seconds. Now I found it by and they made me go. So now we've said to him, say unko baby or the obeda crowd here. Oda akunya no so saa na ya movie at the end of the movie now I was saying hey today they see oh, bless him, Dr. Kojo. Oh, he's so funny. But you know that's the thing. I think so is different. And sometimes again you have to recognize these things. You know, people work in night shifts. So Dr. Kojo does a lot of night shifts. And so honestly, most of the time we're bread. So we're not about to force him say you need to be here all the time. But for the ones that we said say we're having like a movie night and a BB Sam, like so even like date nights, like if it's the four of us having date night, you did you pay Dr. Kojo money back to say oh okay, no. So we just tell him, so okay, you know what, you can be cozy, you can be here, you can sleep here. And I mean, the thing is, it's only if you're doing it only once a month, you know, the person can really give up their sleep into obviously then that sleeping person may need to be evaluated for sleep apnea, especially if he's not. He does well, actually no. Anyway, you know, that's a good question. I might have to look into that one. But yeah, no, I think so just being around the present because you know, if just even being around and at the end of the movie, he will wake up and then we'll be able to talk about the movie and say, oh, this is what happened, and you know, so it's really important. I also find say we have a lot of family building sessions on things like bank holidays. So again, we don't even do expensive things. Like the last bank holiday, we just got up and we wanted to go to a park. So we searched for like the biggest park around us. We drove about 45 minutes away as a family. We literally went on a park and we had a picnic, inexpensive. The only thing that we bought was petrol for that day. But literally, these are some of the activities you can do because for some of you parents here, if there's a bank holiday, you can't go to work anyway because you kind of have to stay home with the kids. So instead of staying home and everybody's in their room and you think, okay, you might not be able to afford to go to Alton Towers or go to Disneyland or whatever, but you can go to a park. I mean, a park is not expensive. And you can make your sandwich, you can make kakro, you can make kelewele, whatever. And even in making those foods, you can literally invite the kids along to make the foods with you, and then and it's just a family fun day out. So these are some of the things that you can do to, you know, to build family relationships.
Dr. Akos, Kelewili.
Oh yeah, kelewele is a picnic dish, oh. And I can say on the health aspect of things, Anna. Hello, oi.
Mpesa beka biom.
Hey, menka.
Fancy. Yo, Doc, you better say na for our time when you're at the mind and the insights and so I was share with us when it comes to mental health and the family. Before so be you know, your last comment I would be AJ. Then also if somebody want to get in touch with you, your contact details, your social handles, na sana AJ I'm
Yeah. I mean, my message is very simple. Mental health is so real. It affects all families, regardless of your color, regardless of your race, regardless of your culture. It really does affect us. And I think for Africans and Black people, I really just want to urge us to find the help that we need. If you feel like you're struggling yourself, or you know somebody who's struggling, but you don't know how to support them, there are organizations who can help you. Like I said, I'll leave my details in the chat. So just drop me a ping and I'm more than happy to sit down with you. I do a lot of pro bono work for the African community. In fact, I should start charging you guys because I'll be very rich by now. But it's for the love of the country. So yeah, so if anybody needs anything, just honestly drop me a message. I'm available anytime and I'm more than happy to sit through and chat things up with you.
Nambacho, or contact details are NASA, how we'll be able to get in touch with you.
Yeah, my social media, because I'm always active on social media. So if you don't, maybe I'm a debatosis, yeah, if you don't have either of them, I've also got an email that you can reach me on the email. So I've got Instagram, I've got TikTok, and I've got the email. So you can reach me on any of those. If anybody's on the OT Media Health platform, I'm also there. So you can always grab my number from there. I don't want to put it on here just because it's a bit too public for me. But if you're on the OT Media platform, then I take it as say your OT Media family. So you can always message me. The answers on your phone. Through there. But yeah, I'll also put the LinkedIn for Safe Spaces, as I said before. It's a new community, but again, if you need support mental health wise, you can always drop them a message on LinkedIn and then yeah, and then take it from there.
Yo, I was here for a hanamo and a brother my home quiet and jumedi yadi ebesi nyame ayaduma definitely next week, we're going to have another episode on health. Many Ghanaian Doctors and Dentists Association for Akasa Nyame. Next week, they are going to join us on this show. And in Mr. Wabomodia, join us again next week, and we will have a very wonderful time. And then, we're not going to have the Taptap Send focus section, but I can assure you, sir, week in, week out, we are going to be here. Any updates be Benya with regards to the Taptap suspension, so you better update you on this show, and also on Taptap Send app. Anytime Abakosu bia any update bia aba ye bema waswate said ye kan ye na egu so aye ho adwuma se empo bia 1 month no enyina enso na Taptap will return back to come and serve you. Said ya som na no ye bekoso asom de musica could do my Ghana mu asomdwe mu. But for the time being there, Taptap is going to be on a pause for a time, for the period of 1 month. But we are praying, say maybe 1 month, and so we'll be back again. And Dikosoa na join us every Thursday on this program. Also on Wednesdays, Dr. Akosua and medical team, Omo any Dinkomo Efa and health and into the same link now they buy any join us every Wednesday for OT Health Talk. Then every Friday, so the lawyers EBA platform, so we talk about immigration, especially UK immigration, and only ask the lawyer. And into every Friday, be a numerous 8 p.m. Join us again. Ewo ahanumia meeting any nana Kwame Oseitu. Be my producer. I'm a few commercials. Not yet Jumedino Aba Awie. Producer.
After successfully redefining Accra's skyline with the delivery of the signature apartments, Cape May Properties presents an exclusive unveiling of the tallest residential building in Ghana, offering a first look of Sultan Sky. Sultan Sky, a magnificent representation of the seamless fusion of quality, groundbreaking innovation, and pioneering architectural brilliance. An extraordinary structure set to reshape the concept of upscale living. Thanks to its inventive attributes and unparalleled commitment to precision. This master-planned residential development will focus on the building's location, security, privacy, the design's aesthetic brilliance, elevated features in each living space, cutting-edge smart home technology, and amenities beyond imagination, with fantastic residential features which include 24-hour concierge service, a state-of-the-art fitness center, a floating tennis court, a floating swimming pool, a spa, a sky pool, a sky lounge, a movie theater, co-working spaces, kids zone, distinctive lifts for staff and deliveries, private gardens, chef's kitchen, expansive terraces, entertainment rooms, restaurant, and 24-hour security. Sultan Sky, a new perspective in the sky.
Yo, abusa for ahanamo ena ebrebe mai ho kwan ena dwumadie yede eba besi nyame eya adoma se de me kan next week yɛbɛsan ɛne wo ahyia bi na mmom ɔkyena sɛ ɛba no immigration dia ɛne ahyia yɛn na yɛne lawyer wisdom akaho from wise man services ɛbɛkɛkɛ nkɔmmɔ saa ɛnso ɛna wowɔ ɛyɛ Belgium ɛnso a ɛne ɛnhyia ɛwɔ again Ghana Music Awards ɛyɛ Saturday ɛbɛyɛ ɛna ɛno nso ɛkɔ so ɛwɔ Ghent nti sɛ wɔ Belgium ɛne ana Germany ɛwɔ Holland anase Amsterdam a ubetimi any ahyia ewo Belgium Amsterdam did I say Belgium Amsterdam? No, Belgium Ghent na yene busuafo a ewo ɛhɔ nyinaa enhyia mu ewo Ghana Music Awards ase eno Taptap Send ena edesa adwumadie no ede brewo Ora Patrick Manfo also a quick question mamefo Ora Patrick Manfo enkwa na afi yede dwumadie no asi ahano Patrick mbacho yetio.
Oh, Nana Midasi. In fact, na me was sooner me a call off. I tried couple of times, na me to me in my back. And me pay say muka be bifa the utmost suspension one as a mon near.
Yes, we did earlier on during Taptap Send update section. No, said when you enter through our emails to our customers. No, yes, Taptap Send will be on a suspension for 1 month as directed. And I said directive a buy from Bank of Ghana because of one of our partners, NT Sabri Mineoka said the app is not going to work from now till the 17th of October, but we are working on it to see that we'll be able to bring it back as soon as possible. But until then, we will not be able to carry and I say the Uzika call my gun and ama until the suspension is over. And you know we can assure you say we'll keep you updated anytime any news via no you be saying any more akasa about it. And that is how dear Etienne no.
And yet, me da CP say yen so said yes, dominant yen yamuda. You watch me, you bet chain.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
BCB and you bet chain, but that's CP.
So, yebeko ababe sumu or sumpa igusu ayede sumu na yebeko so ne ababe sa assign ababe sumu.
Amen. Amen. Stay blessed.
Yo, me da se busia for ahanemo ena yedi dwumadi ni ebesi.
Good night.